Hi, everyone. Sorry, we kind of thought Polly would go first, and that is enough to throw me off, apparently. My name is Kristy Hankila, and I am the manager of the Early Learning and Childcare team within the Early Years Department. A little bit confusing already, we know. And Polly, if you just want to.
Hello, I'm Polly Francis, and I'm the manager of the early years.
Awesome. And we both work tirelessly to support children 0 to 6 and their families, and just really wanted to spend today just to say hello and introduce ourselves and some of the work that we're doing, and hopefully start to get to know you. We look forward to an opportunity in November that we'll have to spend a full day with you at the next forum. And with our team, we would really like to do some workshops with you to better understand your needs and how we can support. So I'm just here to talk a little bit about early learning and childcare. It's a topic that would take hours or days to cover, and I have 5 minutes. So I just really wanted to introduce it to you. So the IELCC framework, or Indigenous Early Learning and Childcare, came into play in 2018. And before that, there were only 12 communities that were receiving funding for early learning and childcare or daycare centers. So, and that happened in 96. So for over 30 years, there was no funding. So this is the very first funding we've seen in a long time, which is, of course, is very exciting. You can go to the next slide. I just wanted to give some highlights. So since 2018, these are the amounts of funding that went to communities. And these amounts that are on here don't include the amounts that went directly to your First Nations through your education agreements for before and after care. This is purely for programs and services funding that goes into every single NAN First Nation. So from 2018 to 2025, that's the top number. And then you can see if you look down below, oh, sorry. Oh, actually, I switched them. That was good for me. I like that I did that. So you can see that this year, communities received more than they have before. So every one of your communities has received more funding for Indigenous early learning and childcare than previously. And this funding is so flexible. It can be used for so many different things, so many different kinds of early learning and childcare programs, whether that's daycare, home care, on the land, TP, seasonal programs, elders' nests, language nests or elders' homes. It could be look so many different ways. And so it's exciting to finally see that into communities. That second column on both sections is the amount of money that NAN gets to support partnership and governance. And what that means is after 30 years of no funding, now that the government is giving communities funding, there are no systems in place to support those programs. So this funding is for building those systems, for supporting First Nations to build those systems. And we're doing that through the development of a NAN early learning and childcare framework, meant to be a useful tool for communities to use to design their own programs and also help for the funding and advocacy for those programs. And the bottom numbers are the capital. And I do just want to say that there is the very first amount of capital funding for IELCC that's available this year. So NAN has all of that information for communities. It's not a lot of funding, not going to lie. It's supposed to be for pre-build work, so things like needs assessments, but communities can also look at flexible creative solutions with that funding, like outdoor spaces for early learning and childcare programs, or portable locations. And on the left here, what we have learned over and over as we work towards this framework is that there is no one size fits all solution to early learning and childcare. Every single one of NAN's communities is so unique, so diverse, so beautiful and rich in their languages, their culture, and their tradition. So there's no way that we could just develop one system. What we can do, though, is together we can design tools that can support communities to design the programs that reflect their goals and values, and also ensure that communities have the money and the resources and the tools that they need to do that. So I also wanted to say that these are the things that really come to mind that our IELCC team can support you with. And if you'll just put your hands up in the back, Shelley and Morgan, you would have seen them at our table, the early years table, the one with all the puppets out there. But these are the things that we could really support your communities with now. Transition to kindergarten, whether that's planning or support, program planning and development for early learning and childcare programs. In some communities, the IELCC funding goes to the health director. In some communities, it's the education director, and some communities look different than that. Also, we are here for before and after school support. If you're running those kinds of programs, you can reach out to us. We can support that. And preschool programs and school readiness, if that's something that your community is considering, we have so many ideas for really flexible mobile solutions and things that could be implemented in the summertime. And on-site support for those who are working with students 0 to 6. I also wanted to just let everyone know that this is launching very soon. As I said, we are working towards a framework, and part of that is to really look at what community-based solutions can look like in First Nations. So there will be a grant of up to $15,000 to implement a short-term solution to early learning and childcare needs, and there's so many needs. So that can look like programs for staff or for families or for bringing in elders, but it can also look like designing a kindergarten readiness program that can run in the summertime and really get those students ready who haven't had the experience to attend an early learning and childcare program, just to really support that transition. We know that kindergarten can be a very overwhelming place. So we do think that that could be one of a good ways to utilize this grant. But there are also so many solutions that I'm sure that we haven't thought of that you can bring to us. So please just be on the lookout for that. And the last thing that I want to mention, there's no slide for it, but here I am, and please, the business cards are out in the hallway, so you can reach out to our team. But there is a survey that you would have seen at the table with the puppets, and Morgan and Shelley will be here for the rest of the day. If you haven't done that survey, please do. It is just a pre-survey for you, our education directors. And as I said, in November, we hope to do some workshops and some more work with you to better understand what you want for early learning and childcare, what you see, what your communities need in terms of programming for the 0 to 6. So thank you so much for having me and for listening today. I can't wait for an opportunity to work more in November. And Sherry?
Next one. Okay, it says up at the top, also receive funding for before and after care with their education agreements. I'm not, can you just expand on that a bit? Because I don't know what that is.
That was part of the original Indigenous early learning and childcare framework. It came with a certain designated amount, and I can't remember exactly what that is. And of course, it's always Canada and then regionally and then NAN to work out what those formulas are. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was supposed to be lumped into existing education agreements since 2021. So if communities have, we can connect about that. But okay, that is our understanding. That is what, so ESDC is the funder, but the agreements go through ISC. So we can connect with those to ensure that all First Nations are receiving that.
Yeah, okay, because some other people here might know, but education agreements is maybe what's throwing me off. We can talk.
And you know, I'm not familiar, so it could be my language, but that's what they told us, is that it goes to every First Nation with their education funding. And my apologies. I'll learn your lingo if we spend more time together. Miigwech.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about Canada's autism strategy. So we get that PowerPoint up. Perfect. Okay, so our department, it's quite large. As Kristy said, we have got 2 teams, and we do, even though our work is related, there's a lot of different things that we do. So my team really focuses on the 0 to 6, really dealing with issues with neurodiversities, autism. We support the Indigenous Healthy Baby workers, FESD workers in the community. Yeah, so what's happened is Canada has developed an autism strategy. So the government intends for this framework to set out guiding principles related to the national autism policy and programs, while the strategy supports the implementation of the framework. So I will leave a copy of this Canada Autism Strategy at the early years table. Wendy at the back, if you want to give a little wave, she's sitting there. So if you want to look at it, but I've highlighted the link so you could download a copy for yourself and print it out. It's quite lengthy, probably about 50 pages. Okay, so what we really want to do is we just want to really make sure that you're aware of this. NAN is at the table, and we're going to make sure that we have an Indigenous lens on this. Okay, so this is just a brief description about what autism is. We know that when chiefs come to meetings, they're starting to say more and more, what is autism? They're starting to get a lot more of our children diagnosed. It's always been there, but people are starting to talk about it a bit more. So in 2019 and 2021, the Minister of Health's mandate, it included the commitment to work collaboratively with the provinces and the territories and families and stakeholders towards creating an autism strategy. So in 2023, the Federal Framework on Autism Disorder Act received the royal assent. So Canada's Autism Strategy 2024 builds on the framework of autism in Canada and the Disability Inclusion Act. So these are the 5 priority areas that they've identified that they're going to focus on. It's almost like the pillars of the framework. So the autism strategy is going to focus on the life course approach and the intersectionality, recognizing that First Nations may require distinction-based and Indigenous-led solutions. It commits to updating the strategy regularly with reliance on the mechanisms like the federal, provincial, and territory working groups on autism and the Interdepartment Steering Committee on Autism and the new National Autism Network. So just to share a little bit of the NAN-specific work, so you'll see that there was a NAN Autism Action Team in 2019. The Autism program, OAP, continues to evolve. However, barriers remain for First Nation communities in remote areas, including long wait times, limited diagnosis, just the capacity and insufficient funding for travel or respite. So even though Autism Program Advisory Panel has made recommendations regarding culturally safe and localized programs, the implementation in NAN communities is still very limited. Okay, so I just want to talk to you about the next steps. So at NAN, we know that we need to reestablish the NAN Autism Action Team and really engage the National Autism Network and secure dedicated funding and policy commitments, and having that data and research collaboration and improve community awareness and training, and then monitor and report back to the chiefs, report back to you, directors. So our future work is really going to look at advocating and making sure that's holistic and community-driven care rather than replicating the urban models. And the intention for parent support, respite training, peer networks, and navigating Jordan's principle. Ensure cohesive services, bringing clinical, educational, and social services, and making sure that there's accountability by pushing the policy and funding changes at federal and provincial levels. So for example, drug coverages, OAP improvements, and we're going to continue with that data mapping and capturing the accurate data for our First Nation communities so that we could have those informed solutions. Okay, so lastly, we just want to let you know that how we're going to do this is, So what had happened is we were just at CALS, so the Canadian Autism Leadership Summit in Ottawa, earlier this month. And DGC Anna Betty was there. We had representation from the Youth Council and the Women's Council. And we were sitting there and we were talking, and we are now at that national table. So there was a meeting before the summit started, and they were able to share the ideas. So we are having our voice heard. So it's really good. For the past 2 years, we've had representation. We've spoken at this event, and we're bringing the issues of the NAN communities there. So we are finally there at the table. So it's really important for us to remember the importance of early years. We get really excited. We know that babies are so important. Our children, they're our future. We can't ignore children anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to host a NAN Autism Summit in the fall. So we just want to let you know that you will all be invited, which is why Kristy and I wanted to come here to give you the heads up, get to know who we are, and really get to know at that time is when we're going to come forth and share more of this planning and what we're going to do to address this strategy. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know it's lunchtime, so enjoy the rest of your conference. Miigwech.